that Lynn is the city of Unitarian Universalism. I'm Jim Peterson, a member of the social justice ministry team of this church, and you just heard from Martha and Moira about a new chance that our ministry team will be taking to help Lynn children and families. In a few minutes, 6 members of our ministry team and the Green Sanctuary ministry team will let you know what we're doing today in Lynn. If you're interested in learning more about any of these or in joining us with any of these projects, see any of the members of the ministry team here, watch for announcements, or come to our monthly meetings on the second Monday of each month. But first, a little introduction to what's going on here, a little bit of the church history. The Unitarian Church in Lynn was organized in 1822, which is 192 years ago. We have a big birthday coming up in a few years. The first Universalist church was 11 years later in 1833, and between then and the merger of those congregations in 1966, lots happened in the Unitarian and Universalist worlds in Lynn. I have just a moment to give you a couple brief highlights. Members and the ministers of these two congregations were leaders locally and nationally in the anti-slavery movement. And they were also leaders in Lynn city government, banking, business, medical care, and education. Members of this church were involved in founding of many local institutions, including the Girls Club, which is now known as Girls Inc., and the Boys Club, which is now the Boys and Girls Club, and we'll be talking about our current connection with that in a few minutes. A couple highlights from the history before we move on. Before one of Lynn's most famous residents, Mary Baker Eddy, had her tragic fall and miraculous recovery, she attended the Lynn Unitarian Church. And she and Mr. Eddy were married by the Lynn Unitarian minister in 1877. 60 years later, the Lynn Unitarian Church was the site of the funeral service for GE co-founder Elihu Thompson. Elihu is the way Wikipedia says to pronounce it. I've always wondered. Service in the Lynn Unitarian Church, co-officiated by the Universalist minister, was covered in the New York Times. And on the Universalist side, by about half a century after its founding, the first Universalist church in Lynn was the largest Universalist church in the denomination. Its Sunday school, wasn't yet known as a faith development program, had 700 students and 100 teachers. Reverend James Minton Pullman was probably the leading Universalist minister in the country. If you read stories even in the New York Times, he's simply referred to as Dr. Pullman. Everyone knew who that was. Lynn hosted the Universalist General Conventions twice in the 1800s, in 1875 and 1889. And in the latter one, the Young People's Christian Union, the first denominational youth group, the precursor to YRUU, was formed in the Lynn General Convention in 1889. As Reverend Vicky said a couple months ago, these two churches are our DNA. We've been making a difference in Lynn for 192 years, and we're still working to turn the world around.
Old Nahant Street Church in Lynn. The sanctuary was at least 1.5 times the size and the height of this room. There were heavy wooden cross beams that rose so high that they seemed to join in the shadows. There were stained glass windows on both sides of the sanctuary, glowing with biblical scenes. The minister spoke from a raised pulpit at the front left side of the altar, and the choirs occupied 4 rows of seats leading to that altar, 2 on each side. That church was Gothic before Gothic became a somewhat darkly clothed fad among high school students. And yet it was magnificent. And in January 1976, that magnificent building burned down. An eyewitness, our former minister, the Reverend Robert Slater, described it. It was inconceivable, unbelievable. A church built like a fortress, a church that would endure forever, that strong, mighty church which could not be destroyed had succumbed to the ravages of fire. And the cause of that fire was never successfully determined by the Lynn Fire Department. The wooden interior structure burned, the stones collapsed. I was on the church board during the months following that when we debated what we should do next. There were people who wanted to rebuild in Lynn. Some wanted to rebuild on the Nahat Street site. There were those who wanted to build apartments with a church on top, and there were those who just wanted to build a church. There were still more people who advocated for a while that we buy a half a dozen homes on the Lynn-Swampscott line and build on that block. In the late 1970s, however, there were also a lot of fires in Lynn. We were not alone. There were some people who were afraid to rebuild there. They suspected that the fire might have been deliberately set. Maybe it was the result of our own kindness. There were smokers among the people who were in groups that we hosted at our church. And we also sponsored controversial programs, including a Lynn City Hall appearance by Jane Fonda in 1973, when she was still staunchly anti-war. That was 3 years before the fire, but as I say, when the cause of the fire is unknown and things remain a mystery, people struggle to fill that vacuum with reasons. There were also people who had no strong feelings either way. They simply wanted a new church large enough to house all our members, and they respected the stronger feelings that swirled around them. In the end, 3 things became apparent to the majority of our members. The geographic center of our church membership had shifted from Lynn to Swampscott. We had the opportunity to build on a beautiful piece of property in that town, and many of our church members were strongly in favor of maintaining our commitment to Lynn and keeping the word Lynn in our name. That's why we are the Greater Lynn Church. And this morning, you will hear about our continuing commitment from several members of the social justice ministry team.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Boggs. I am a member of this church, and I'm on the board of directors of the Essex County Community Organization, ECHO. I have come to learn that there is much common purpose between these two organizations. ECHO, founded in Lynn in 1981, is a diverse North Shore faith-based community organization with 23 member congregations: Protestant, Jewish, UU, Catholic, Pentecostal, and others. The UUCGL was one of the founding members of ECHO and has continued for over 30 years to be a very strong supporter through generous financial contributions, leadership, and the activism of our members. This church should be very proud of all that we have achieved with ECHO over the years, particularly in Lynn. For example, and this is the very abbreviated "don't you dare talk more than 2 minutes" version of the list of accomplishments. ECHO brought community policing to Lynn in the 1980s. ECHO has helped secure funding for youth violence prevention programs and anti-gang work in Lynn. ECHO has worked with local businesses for many years to bring badly needed youth summer jobs to the city. When 2 of our own parishioners, Patty Pendexter and Mary Ann Hayes, were leaders in ECHO, the Machinist Training Program was launched. This groundbreaking jobs training program has been a pathway to living wage jobs for hundreds of North Shore men and women. Most recently, as many of you know, ECHO has spearheaded the successful Battle Initiative drive to put an increase in the minimum wage and earned sick time questions on the November ballot. ECHO gathered over 16,000 signatures, and amazingly, more than 1,600 of those came from this church. This work is ongoing, but if passed in November, these measures will positively improve the lives of over 1 million people in the Commonwealth. ECHO is now a respected and powerful voice for social and economic justice on the North Shore. This church has played a uniquely steadfast and critical role in ECHO's success. May we continue our good work together.
Hi, my name is Michael Salona. In addition to being the registrar for Ferry Beach, I'm also the co-chair of the Social Justice Ministry team, and I'm going to be speaking for a few minutes about our work with St. Stephen's in Lynn. St. Stephen's is an Episcopal church located in downtown Lynn in the Commons area. The church was built actually by the Mudge family in the late 1800s in honor of their child who had died in the Civil War. Other interesting tidbits about the church are that it has Tiffany windows. ECHO headquarters is actually located at St. Stephen's, and their Reverend Jane Gould is very active in social justice issues. It's actually a very beautiful church, another Gothic-looking church. We have developed a partnership with St. Stephen's over the past 5 or so years that has 2 parts. The first is helping support their food pantry, which supports Lynn residents and operates 3 Fridays a month. The pantry receives its primary support from the Greater Boston Food Bank. However, as the quantity and the type of food has changed since the Great Recession, the quantity that they receive from the food bank is less, and the types of food that they receive has also changed. They receive less amounts of certain high-protein foods like milk, eggs, cheese, and peanut butter, as well as nutritious foods like fruits and veggies. The Social Justice Ministry team collects food that church members donate in the box in the foyer that has been there for many years. And we also supplement this with approximately $200 of food that we purchase at the grocery store. This food primarily consists of fruits, veggies, and wholesome and natural and organic items like Annie's mac and cheese, applesauce from Vermont, as well as organic rice from California. Now, this may sound extravagant, but I can say that these are purchased on sale when possible, and also with coupons, as I am someone who uses lots of coupons. We also purchase some local food, including Cabot cheese slices, again, when they are on sale at Market Basket. We also purchase fresh produce when possible. We've bought apples at Brooksby Farm in Peabody, potatoes at a farm in Methuen, again, kind of in season. In addition to this, each month we purchase 40 loaves of whole wheat bread from a bakery in Lynn and have it delivered to the pantry. The second part of our partnership has to do with supporting the kids who live in the area around St. Stephen's. St. Stephen's runs a summer camp called Kids in Community, and this camp is offered to elementary school children in Lynn free of charge. Grants from our ministry team has meant that the camp has been able to hire several local teens to work as camp counselors, which means that they're able to accept more kids into the camp, at least 16 for each of the past 2 years. So this has helped both with the issues of teen unemployment as well as kids not having enough to do during the summertime. Remember those days. Through this partnership with St. Stephen's, we have developed lasting and meaningful relationships.
Good morning. I'm Bruce Campbell, and I'm also a member of the Social Justice Ministry team. And I'm here to talk to you about the Boys and Girls Club in Lynn, which is one of the associations in Lynn that we've partnered with. We started back there. It's been several years now. And that time I've become sort of the liaison between the ministry team and the Boys and Girls Club. The main thing that we do over there is 3 nights a week, 3 nights a month from October through April. We have 3 different groups that go over on a Wednesday evening and prepare a meal for the teen members. We had determined that the teen members of the Boys and Girls Club were the members that were least served. Everybody wants to go and volunteer with the little kids. Nobody really wants to deal with those teens. But we found out over the years that it's a wonderful thing. So 3 nights a month we go, we prepare a meal. Sometimes we just simply bring in some pizza. But what we really try to do is to bring in some food that we can cook together and get to know the kids, get some conversation around the food. sit down and enjoy a meal. There's a lot of things. It's really a beehive of activity over there. There's a lot of things going on. We have a lot of kids that will sit down and dine with us. We have other kids that are playing basketball and so forth that will jump out and get something to eat. When you bring food, they show up. We have helped out with some other things. Family nights we volunteered at, holiday parties. Past couple of years they've had an anti-bullying campaign. We've helped out with that. And just recently this week the club has the Youth Member of the Year, in which that involves the club member presents an essay to a group of community members. We had somebody representing us as judging the Youth of the Year essay contest. Again, as in St. Steve is another way that we support the Boys and Girls Club is, some of the things that the ministry team has identified has been teen jobs for the summer, food. So we sponsor two camps counselors positions at the day camp in Middleton, and we also sponsor a weekly campership for one member per. I believe it's either 8 or 10 week program. So we pay the way for one camper during that time during the summer. But all in all, it's really it's really the personal connections, I think, that have kept us coming back. People like Jonathan and Namie, Michaela, Michael, Chantel. They're really the reasons why the program has stayed alive. Because it can be a difficult institution to work with at times, but it's the kids that keep us coming back. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Claudia Luck, and I'm going to be speaking a little bit about a scholarship program that this church funds. In 1999, our congregation created the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lynn Scholarship to honor the work of one of our previous ministers, Anita Farber Robertson, and her own commitment to the Greater Lynn community and social justice. This year marks the 15th year of the scholarship's existence. Each year, we dedicate $20,000 to fund $5,000 scholarship for Swampscott High and $15,000 distributed to Lynn's 3 public high schools. Graduating seniors from these 4 schools who are going on to a 4-year school, a community college, or pursuing technical training are eligible to apply. We cast a broad net. We look for students who demonstrate a commitment to community service and social justice. We also encourage people of color and students who would be their family's first-generation college student to apply. And we award scholarships to students with limited and sometimes with virtually no financial resources. Over the past 14 years, our church has distributed $280,000 in scholarships to more than 200 smart, hardworking, really truly amazing young adults. The program scholarship committee is responsible for contacting the schools, distributing the applications, screening the written applications, interviewing the finalists, and deciding who will receive the scholarships. Our current committee, Debbie Boggs, Mike Martell, and Linda Landry, take responsibility for all of this. Being on the committee is both hard and gratifying. It's hard because, as you can imagine, these can be difficult decisions to make. At the same time, it's gratifying because for many of these young people, the impact of the financial gift is powerfully underscored by being told that this congregation, we believe in you, and we believe in your dreams. Not all children have heard this before. That is part of the gift we provide for them, and this congregation provides. About 30 years ago, my husband and I walked through the doors of this church for the first time, and were struck by how much this congregation valued and values its children. That continuing commitment to young people goes far beyond our doors here for what we provide for our children, and it goes beyond our shores. This month, Our 50-50 offering will support our Transylvanian high school scholarships. And before we introduce the offering, I just want to read a short reading from Mark that's in our hymnals. If someone would scatter seed on the ground and would sleep and rise night and day, the seed would sprout and grow. The earth produces of itself first the blade, then the ear, then the full corn in the ear. When the grain is ripe, the harvest has come. So let's scatter some seeds, because part of what we harvest are our young people, and I mean our globally.